All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome. We are on a special Cardano Budget Committee Ask Me Anything session. And today our session is with the Cardano Civics Committee. So we have Nico, Adam, and Jose from the Cardano Civics Committee. So welcome, guys. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Hey, Lloyd, thanks for setting this up.
Yeah,
Yeah,
thank
my
you.
pleasure. Yeah, so our goal with these AMAs is to inform the community about the various committees and what work they're doing to provide value in 2025. So the goal of the Civics Committee is to put together and collate all of these budgets into a Cardano annual budget. And these three gentlemen are here today with the Cardano Civics Committee to tell what the Civics Committee plans to offer value to the Cardano ecosystem during 2025. So if you guys would like to take it away and give a showing of what it is y'all are looking to accomplish in 2025.
Yeah, absolutely. I can just go ahead and share my screen and then we can just yeah, switch between the speakers because I
Sure.
think that would work great. So please let me know once you can see my
Yeah,
screen.
we see it just fine, Nico.
Perfect. Good. Yeah, so basically I think what's super important is to just get some additional context because right, maybe you don't know what the Cardano Civics Committee is all about, what we are doing, what we're planning to do. So the Cardano Civics Committee, if I'm not mistaken, so I joined in July 2024. But all these other amazing gentlemen on this call, like Adam and Jose, have been since, yeah, with the Civics Committee since the beginning, I think, and even before that. And yeah, so this overarching mission, value, whatever, or not, vision, how you want to call it, is that the Cardano Civics Committee ensures that the governance of Cardano is accessible, fair, and transparent. So this is our guiding North Star, I would say, as a committee that really, yeah, guides our actions and what we want to do. And yeah, maybe, I don't know, Adam or Jose, do you want to say something about how the Civics Committee started or give some context about that?
Yeah, thank you. So I think it was about this time last year that we started meeting, and one of the things that we knew we had to do was we'll start talking about the Constitution and look at what are the components that needed to go into the Constitution, because if we were going to be bringing together members of the Cardano community to engage in the constitutional process, we had to have the framework that they could work within and the materials that they could look at. So doing that governance support is a hugely important part of the Committee, so that the Civics Committee can have people who work directly with the governance actors on Cardano, the DReps, the SPOs, the Constitutional Committee members, so that when they need something, they know who they can call, they know who they can ask for. And obviously, Cardano is a decentralized ecosystem, so anyone is able to stand up a group such as ours to do things. But as a part of Intersect, we are, we have a charge and a mission to do this for the community. Just sort of, making sure that we keep that in mind, that we're service oriented towards the community is the first part. And then from there, making sure that we can, allow for working groups to form under the Civics Committee, with the Civics Committee as the sponsoring organization, is also very important because that allows for those specializations to continue. So that's why we have, like, for instance, the Constitution Ratification Working Group is a little bit separate from well, I shouldn't say a little bit, it is completely separate from the Governance Support Working Group, because those contain quite different groups of people that can work on different projects in different ways, and so you don't have to have the same people getting burned out, hopefully. So as we go on, we've been expanding the roles and expand, to include more people, and it's been a great process to make these connections.
Maybe just to expand a little bit on that, Adam, thank you. That's a great context. And so when this group started to work, the Civics Committee, even before it was the Civics Committee, it was just a group trying to put together all the learnings and the insights from the 1694 and thinking all about what does governance look like, about how's the DRep, how is the constitutional committee, what kind of people, what tools do you need, what training do you need, what incentives, what structures, what number of people. So a lot of aspects and trying to engage with people. So there were workshops, and there were a lot of efforts that ultimately brought us, when the actual civics committee came online and came real formal group. Some of that people who was working there ended up just working together. They're in different work groups, as Adam just mentioned. And we are on the happy place now that most of the group, or at least half of the group, is now elected. So that is a great thing to provide legitimacy to the committee, because at the beginning, committees in Intersect, all around Intersect, were just people who showed up and put in the work. And now we have people who's showing up, putting the work, and being elected. So that's gradually providing more legitimacy, and that's something that we're striving to do all the time.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, right? And taking all of that into consideration, right? And what we are still working on, 2024 is not yet over. We have the convention coming up next week. That's going to be very, yeah, it's going to be great. It's going to be a lot of work, of course, but I think very productive. But also, right, what these live streams and these sessions are for is also to look ahead. And we, of course, did that, right, as not just the civics committee, but also as the working group. And we defined 3 key pillars for 2025. And please, if there are any questions at any time, feel free to either raise your hand or post it in the chat. Yeah, I'm fine with being interrupted. So these 3 pillars that we defined, the first one, and Adam already touched on that, is support governance participants, right? And that includes all of the different roles. So in our tricameral governance model, right, the delegated representatives, the constitutional committee, the SPOs, and also the ADA holders, right? Because while they are not one of the specific 3 bodies of governance, right, they are the ones who delegate their voting power to DReps, so they can become DReps themselves. They're also, delegating to stake pool operators. And the average ADA holder, right, what they really need is educational materials. They need to be, taught and shown what is possible in this new governance model, right? So this pillar of support governance participants, right, if you look at it, all of that has a lot to do with education, right? Because everything is very new. We still don't have sometimes the best education materials available. Tooling is missing, and the whole governance experience, user experience, if you want to call it like that, is still something that has to be improved, right? It needs to be seamless, and people need to be able to find high quality educational materials available also in their local languages, right? And that is also something I think that's very important for us. And if you really look at it, for example, for the Constitutional Committee as well, here, I mean, one thing that we have seen with the ICC, the Interim Constitutional Committee, right? It's a committee where we have 3 community elected councils on this, that are part of the 7-member ICC. And they had to go through quite a few challenges in the beginning, right? Setting up their processes, setting up their operational security frameworks and whatnot. And of course, also how do they treat, for example, are they incorporating, what are they doing in that perspective? So there's quite a few learnings that these 3 councils, so the Cardano Atlantic Council, the Eastern Cardano Council, and Cardano Japan went through. And going forward, right, we will also have new potentially constitutional committee members, and they also need to be supported. Because we will transition from the interim constitutional committee to the, let's say, final, or not final, but not the interim. So this is the whole support governance participants stream. And one thing that is very important here is, right, that we as the Civics Committee, we do not want to be basically the ones controlling everything. We want to support and help these 3 or 4 groups that are listed here. So it's really working hand in hand, understanding the problems, the pain points of these different roles, and then trying together to, make governance in Cardano more accessible, fair, and transparent, as it's our North Star. Adam or Jose, do you want to add something to that?
Yeah, well, maybe on the risk of being repetitive and repeating what you just said, one key aspect is engaging the community in governance. So participation is probably the main challenge here. Not only good quality DReps and good quality constitutional committee members and good quality SPOs that engage in governance, but also and mainly the main community, the ADA holders and ADA owners that are just, holding their tokens, and they're probably not too interested in the governance aspects, and they find it overwhelming or find it difficult. Making available and making it interesting for everyone to engage and providing a reason for them to do and the means to do it easily is one of the main aspects of and the challenges of the Civics Committee and the whole Cardano community. And the Civics Committee role, we see it ourselves, we see ours as facilitators more than leaders or guiders of the process. So providing the tooling, the training, and all the resources that are necessary and the communication materials for this to happen is kind of what we're aiming for with these 3 categories that was just showing us there. Some conversations regarding specifically the engagement of governance actors, so, the DReps and constitutional committee members specifically. For example, talking about compensation is it's being widely debated around the Constitution on if there should be compensation or not, and if there seems to be a wide support for some forms of compensation to be in place. Just making that happen and structuring that requires some effort and requires some resources, and of course requires a budget for being able to pay those actors. So that's kind of why we are including it there. And of course, it's not just that, it's also looking forward on how are we doing and measuring the status of governance. So you see in facilitating governance improvements, it's kind of the category where we look forward in the future and how we're doing and what new challenges are arising. And we kind of try to fund an effort to go out into the community and understand how we're doing in terms of governance and how can that impact the resilience and the health of the community and the ecosystem. So there's also an annual report for the state of the Cardano governance that we're wishing to include into the exercise that for next year. I don't know, Adam, maybe you want to add something else?
I mean, all excellent points that you gentlemen have had. The only thing I'll add is when we think about keeping governance accessible and fair for everyone, we always keep in mind that different people have different ways in life that they're able to dedicate to the network and to a different amount of time that they're able to dedicate, which I think you mentioned. And so, all of us on this call are kind of abnormal in the amount of time and dedication we are able to give to the ecosystem. And I think that we're all basically, all of us on this call right now that I can see, at least in the list that I can see right now, are being compensated for it in some way or are including it in their career in some way, such as I am as a academic who studies blockchain. But there are other people who are, have a couple jobs that are not blockchain related, have a family obligations, who maybe only once a week they're able to sit down and check in on what's going on. And we want them to also be able to know that this is accessible to them and that they can have the resources available to, find out what's going on, make their opinion known to the governance representatives that are that they have chosen. And so that's part of this process, is making sure that there are materials and mechanisms to help different people in different ways.
Right. Fantastic points, everyone. It looks like we do have our first hand up, though, so we'll take a moment and welcome Nori. Good to see you.
Good to see you all. Great presentation. I was wondering, just putting on my MCC hat, if there's any opportunities for the MCC and the Civics Committee to work together in 2025. Particularly, we're thinking about what are we doing with community hubs and events and education. And I see things here around training and education. And are there opportunities to do some kind of a cross-committee thing where we can leverage the community hubs or town halls or anything we're doing to help spread the word, train people, hold events, things like that. And just, I know committees are kind of working on their budgets in a little bit of a silo right now. So I'm wondering how we can start to cross-pollinate and talk between the communities and plan maybe cross-committee, I don't know, joint ventures or whatever, but things that we can work on together.
So thanks, Nora, for bringing that up. I think that is a key point. And Intersect, we're still baby organization, and there's a lot of opportunities. So setting up that steering committee was a first good step. That steering committee is still finding their ropes and finding the ways to work, and that's probably the best space for a coordinated effort amongst all the committees to set priorities and set resources and collaborate in an organized way. That doesn't exclude the possibility of committees collaborating directly, of course, and that's probably the first step to do it, even if it's a little bit chaotic at first. Is, I think, probably the best way to get things moving forward. But definitely that needs to happen, and there's a great synergy between civics and the MCC in all those aspects that you just mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll add from the budget committee, that's one of the longstanding things. This idea of the quarterly meeting that we're trying to plan. So in a quarterly meeting, there would actually be a responsibility for MCC. They would have to select which hub was going to handle the quarterly meeting, for instance. And then Civics also has a responsibility. They would be communicating with the DReps, the CC, et cetera, about the quarterly meeting and what it would mean to attend it, and if how you would select who would be able to be compensated to attend, that kind of thing would be the purview of Civics. So you see how each committee has to provide something of value toward that final process, which is that quarterly review. So that's something that we're taking very seriously in budget, and trying to do that will help align each committee having their separate responsibilities towards some real value drive for Cardano. And one of the other things that we'll do as facilitation of the budget process is that if there are overlaps, we have to work those out. So we can't, we have to ensure the community doesn't pay twice for the same thing, right? So if there's educational initiatives, we have to have a good firewall as to who handles what part of educational initiatives. So for instance, Civics may say to MCC, hey, we've got these 10 educational initiatives that we need during the year, and they map with these 3 that you have over here. Can we combine our efforts? So that way we move toward the same goal, but we don't hire 2 people to do the same job for 2 different committees, right? So that would be the way we would do that, and we'll facilitate those things over the next few weeks as we begin to align what the final budget needs to look like for 2025.
That's awesome. And one thing, during conversations, we had some new committee members, and they were very excited to jump in and represent from different parts of the world. And they were thinking things like CIP 1694 education overall, and putting in some DRep education and stuff. And then we're like, wait, Civics is probably doing this too. It might be great to back up to the 2025 goals and deliverables level and see, like, if this is what we want to accomplish, then how does Civics and the MCC actually come together and produce these things and who's going to do what, or what do we do jointly. And I think those conversations would be really exciting to have.
Yeah, I think
just
they're
to plan that
key.
together. Yeah.
And I think that most importantly, you've captured that there's new interest, there's new people who want to participate in these processes. That's wonderful because those of us that have been doing it this whole time, both get a little tired from having done it so long, but also it will be so beneficial and so energizing to have additional people taking on parts of these roles, so that they're doing, because it was very hard. I know everyone on this call right here knows how hard it has been balancing all these different things and different responsibilities we've had over these first couple of years of this. And so moving forward, it's going to be amazing to share that load.
I look forward to it. And yeah, I look forward to catching up. Sorry, I need to hop off for another call because I do have a fiat
Thank you
job
for
I
the
need to
question,
get
though,
back to.
Nori. Appreciate it.
Yep.
Thank you,
All
Nori.
right. Thanks, people.
Take care.
And with that, guys, let's go ahead and move forward to the steward governance process portion of your slide so we can describe each of the three sections. That was a fantastic conversation on the first part, but let's move through the other two now so that we have it all recorded for those that can't make the meeting today.
Absolutely. Yeah, so the second pillar, right? This is all about stewarding the governance process. And we captured that basically in three key things, key items. The first one is to basically after the convention, right? After the constitutional convention, let's assume, right, that the delegates agree. There's a majority for approval for the draft that is presented, and the delegates vote on it, agree on it. And then, right, we still need to, after the next hard fork, whatever name it has, Plomin hard fork probably, it will be the case that this still, the update to the constitution, I mean, it has to be submitted as a governance action, right? And this process, right, needs to be facilitated. So that will be one of those key items where we're what we want to focus on. And then, of course, also, as I said before, right, we currently have an interim constitutional committee, which means we would need to switch eventually to an actual constitutional committee. And for that, we also want to help, and as Jose said, right, not lead, but facilitate this election process, come up with proper processes, proper guidance and recommendations, and really drive this process for the community, with the community together, of course, and with the established ICC members, because I mean, we need to have them on board as well, obviously. And yeah, do this part. So that's the second item of this list. And then the third one, and I also touched on that, so I don't want to repeat myself too often, but it is really to oversee also the development and in general the tooling side of the governance process. Right, we need to somehow find out what tools are missing, what tools that are here need to be improved in what way, and maybe something that we have not even yet considered comes up, right? I mean, there is definitely a need for better tooling, and more, right, that makes everything more accessible, more fair, and more transparent. So these are the three items of the Steward governance process pillar. And yeah, did I miss anything, Jose or Adam?
Maybe just on that last point, precision here is that not all the budget goes necessarily to develop the tools ourselves in Intersect. It's more like providing a map on what is needed and in signal to the community where there's opportunities to fill gaps. And communities sometimes don't even need that signaling. And we've been recently seeing wonderful examples of that going on, and tooling coming from the community that fills a gap that was there. And so it's more of kind of trying to provide an overall look on how we are there and where there's opportunities. And in some cases, high priority cases, we might allocate some resources from that budget to grants to develop some of that tooling.
Yeah. And I think this is a great point to bring in question in the chat from Ken Eric, who asks what kind of cooperation there is across different Cardano entities, like Emergo, Cardano Foundation, IOG, and others. And I'll just say that we definitely try to be encouraging of that kind of cooperation. The Civics Committee has Nico, who's part of Cardano Foundation, on it. We have Michael Madoff, Danielle Stanko, Joel Telpner from IOG as a part of it, and members of, obviously it's an Intersect committee, so we have, people who have other roles in Intersect. I've actually just cycled off of Civics Committee, even though I'm still helping out with some of the working groups. But now I'm going to be onboarding to the board of directors for Intersect. And on the board of directors for Intersect, we have representation from Emergo. So it's definitely, a coordinating layer, a coordinating factor. That's the power that we're able to have as a group, is to bring in everybody and have that kind of representation from different organizations, so that when somebody says, how can we do this? Someone can say oh, well, actually our organization has been working on something like that. Let's have our people talk with someone else from another organization to have them start collaborating.
Absolutely. And this is the Intersect is the intersection of all of the organizations of Cardano, whether they are the larger founding entities, smaller entities that are trying to make their own way through Cardano, or those of us who've been around and just are OGs in the space and have been here for a long time. So that's what Intersect is. So by all means, we'll always encourage that. It's in our literally in our DNA. It's why we're here. It's how we were founded. And so it's an important thing. And thank you, Ken Eric, for the question, because it gets to the heart of it. Now, we have a few minutes left here. Yep, we got a few minutes left. So I'd like to throw a couple questions your way if you guys are okay with that. There are no wrong answers to my questions. I'm not trying to trap anybody here. I've just got some interesting questions that we can kind of do a little forward looking. For instance, a community member, Mad Orchestra, he just created a tool that he felt there was an opening in the space. There was a hole that needed to be filled in his eyes. And so he and a couple of other people who are delegates kind of worked together and scrambled and put together a prototype, ultimately, of a tool. How does the Civics Committee see that kind of bubbling up from the community of new material, that new tooling? How do you see supporting that as Civics Committee?
Oh yeah, I mean that's the magic of a decentralized ecosystem, is that like what Mad Orchestra has done. He's a regular on the Cardano over Coffee X space. And he brings in a tool like this to help collect community feedback, and that's something that the delegates can use, not only to participate themselves, but also to see the feedback that they're getting from the people they represent, so that when we all get together next week in the convention, they can say hey, here's the feedback that I've received from the people I represent that we need to make sure we address as we finalize this constitution. And those are the kind of prototypes that when we talk about grants that can be given out, we can say, a need has been identified by this prototype. Is that prototype something that if we offer a grant to the maker of that prototype, they can take it further? Or could we offer a more general grant for things like that, and maybe get some more people together to collaborate to build something? So we don't lead through just from a top-down way in Intersect, right? What we do is we look at what the community is doing, and we say, how can we get more of the good stuff that the community is producing? That's why we're a members-based organization.
Yeah.
Thanks, Adam.
So that was exactly the example I was referring to when I said we just recently saw some community members step up. But it's not the only case, and there's others, and there's others that have announced some months ago that they will come up with something, and we're very anxious to see what they come up with, and it's all going to be very welcome. We're not a gatekeeper, so the Civics Committee, this is important for the community to know, and for anyone who's interested in eventually participating in the Civics Committee. The Civics Committee is not a gatekeeper. It's more of an information and a guide, an information layer, and a convection and a conveying layer, so that the community has a place where they can actually have prioritization and information about all things governance. So we're not here to stop anyone. Actually, we're here to encourage everyone to build what they see that it's fit and it's needed. And ultimately, we might be useful to the community by having a broader perspective of what's going on in tooling. So, for instance, there's this DRep Watch tool that Patrick Tobler and amazing people at NMaker were founded to develop a few months ago. They should be online anytime now, I think. We're very anxious to see what they come up with, and it's definitely going to be welcome, and it's going to be just in time for the Constitution, for the new Constitution being ratified, and DReps being able to participate after the Chang 2 or the new part for that's going to be named soon. So my point here is, and to answer your question, Lloyd, we need more engagement rather than less. So the more people is interested, we have channels in Discord, we have emails, we're all the time engaging in community events, and we're community members such as everyone else. So please reach out if you have concerns, if you have ideas, if you want to propose things. There's always the possibility to open new lines of work and to accommodate for initiatives of the community.
Thank you so much. Appreciate both of your responses. And I'll go with one more, and then we can wrap the session up after that if there are no other questions. This one's a little bit more like just forward-looking, and I understand that there's really no answer to this question yet, so I'm okay with that. But let's just briefly bring up this idea of the compensation for the DReps and the Constitutional Committee. So it's a big topic, right? So where do you see civics fitting into that conversation in early 2025?
Yeah, I mean, this is, I think, one of the most hotly debated, I don't know if that's English, but yeah, heavily debated, I think that's the right term, topics. And one thing I think that's very important, and I don't know, it was Adam or Jose, but during the workshop series, right, it was one of those topics where many, I would even say the majority, I don't remember the data now by heart, but a lot of people that attended the workshops really thought and agreed that there has to be some sort of compensation for DReps and also for the Constitutional Committee, right? So it is not really, as Adam and Jose also said, the role of the Civics Committee to decide if that is the case or not, right? It's rather we follow, the community's view there, right? And of course sometimes challenge it and question things, but ultimately, right, it is gonna be not something that we in the Civics Committee decide that, hey, DReps get compensation or the CC is getting compensation. This is for the, I mean, if we talk about the budget, right, it's for the DReps to decide and for the community in general. So I know this is not really answering the question, but and now I may give my opinion when it comes to, and this is really just my own opinion, right? When we talk about DRep compensation and Constitutional Committee compensation, I think it's important that we don't just immediately say yes or no, right? But really do some proper research and understand, what can we do to, first of all, right, increase governance participation. And just paying people to vote is not the way, right? I mean, it is one way you can do it, but might not be the best because there are trade-offs. So I think what's really important for 2025 is that we start to tackle this from this research approach that Cardano is really known for, right? And when we discover potential ways how we can compensate DReps and CC, but we also, right, don't want to close the door and say, no, we don't do that. That's why it's also part of this budget here. And Jose, maybe you want to say something about that?
Yeah.
Thanks, Nico.
So I see that as Nico said, this is going to be an ongoing conversation. It's going to be one of the work streams that come out of the Constitution. That's probably something that it's not going to be settled now, and we're going to have a continued debate on how to settle that. And I think the Civics Committee's role here is more to facilitate a space and to shape some sort of process or mechanism so that this can happen in a more structured way, a less chaotic way. It doesn't mean that committee can't freely propose and come up with ideas and propose them and debate. I don't think we should pretend to monopolize the conversation, but certainly provide an arena where this discussion can happen in a more orderly way, and so that the results, as always, are legitimate. It's not about who speaks the loudest. It's not about who comes together to enforce the stuff, and it's more about what's best for the community, both based on the community's sentiment and in the research, as Nicholas just said. So there's been some efforts by University of Edinburgh. Agilos has done a paper on several options for DRep computation. There's a debate on, there's people who liked it, there's people who didn't like it. And I guess we'll see what comes out of the pipeline. But the role of the civics, to answer your question, Lloyd, I think is more facilitating the space and the mechanism for this to be a legitimate, transparent conversation.
Right on. Facilitating the conversation, not dictating the direction. So I very much like that, and that is the goal. And I appreciate you guys taking those extra thorny questions there and taking a minute with them, because they are important, right? Like, we have to have the conversation. We have to express where the committee stands on those things, because if you don't express where you stand on the things, other people are going to fill that blank in for you with whatever they think. And so it's much better to have you guys express it yourself. So I really appreciate your candor there, and taking the couple thorny questions, because they are important. So, and on that note, if we have any final questions, I'd like to take them now. Otherwise, we can move on to final thoughts. All right. I see none. So, gentlemen, final thoughts from the Cardano Civics Committee on the road to the 2025 budget.
Yeah, I guess my final thought is just that we need to think about how to best utilize the resources of the Treasury to support the community in growing as governors of the network. The Civics Committee is here to uplift the process to make it so that people learn what's going on and learn how to better engage with the process so that their voice can be heard. We're not here to try to dictate any direction, but we also have a responsibility to, safeguard the Treasury and do it in as efficient of a way as possible. So that's just kind of the balance that we try to go about when we look at these things, and how we want to think about it going forward.
Thank you, Adam.
Yeah, I can only echo what Adam said, right? This part about being financially responsible, being efficient, I think is something that we as a committee, we embrace that completely. And it's something, right, where we need to consider the Treasury, right? Even though it becomes available now after the next hard fork, it's something that is here for the entire community and for the betterment of Cardano in general. So I think this is something we all need to keep in mind, right? And one thing I also always want to say, and I think that it's not part of the slide that we're sharing, but it's, I think, very important to all of us, is that we need to have more ADA participate in the governance process. So we need to have more delegation to DReps. We need more people to register as DReps, because that's also possible. And to just have more governance participation, right? Because we don't want just a few large whales deciding everything, but we really want every single voice participating in this governance process, because that creates a more resilient process, that creates a more inclusive process, right? Because this will, if we can achieve that, I think it's going to be a great future for Cardano.
Thank you, Nico.
Yeah, I'm going to be brief. Just what Nico and Adam just said it all. We need more people engaging in governance. So if you're listening to this, you're probably interested in it. Please step forward, come closer. We want to hear from you. We want to rely on your help to build this. It's a big thing that we're building. We're building this for 1,000 years, and we're not even getting started yet. So the more hands, the better. Please join us in this effort.
Thank you, Jose. Appreciate it. Appreciate all of your time today. A little quick housekeeping. The next AMA session will be on Friday the 6th. It will be live from Buenos Aires. Lawrence and I will, it should be within about an hour after the signing ceremony. So if everything goes according to plan, it will be about an hour after the signing ceremony is completed. So I very much hope to share good news, but I will share whatever the news happens to be when we on Friday from Buenos Aires. So thank you everyone who attended today. Thank you to everyone else who's watching this after the fact. We appreciate your time and attention, and everyone have a wonderful day.